I would like to proceed to properly welcome all of you. As I say, I'm responsible for a number of territorial development research projects in ADL. But today we are basically focusing on CODECS, Sustainable Digitalization, Shaping the Future of Agriculture. That's the name of the seminar. This is part of what we call the Knowledge Accelerator. We have a large number of people registered. I mean, close to 170. Of course, in the end, it's going to be a bit less than that, but we expect the numbers to be going up during the course of the morning. We have, quite interestingly, a fair balance between 1/3 of academics, 1/3 of public administration, and 1/3 of civil society attendees. And also very pleased to find that half of those EU officials are joining us today. The purpose of today's session is to answer a question, or collectively answer a question. How can digitalization replace agricultural landscape and contribute to a sustainable future for farming? This is something that we have, CODECS is what this main mission is about, but also we wanted to have the contribution from the Beatles project, which is a project about climate smart agriculture. Already salute Marilena for being able to join us. And UNISECO, or in a way, the lessons learned from UNISECO is a project already ended, but more widely, Gerald Ruard from Tunin will be providing a wider reflection on this issue about digitalization of agriculture. Why we're doing this? Well, we think, and it's also a requirement, that is not important to actually research on a topic, in this case, digitalization in agriculture, but also disseminate and share experiences. And that's why, as part of CODECS, we got something called the Knowledge Accelerator, which is a very grand name for something which is very much more specific, which is organizing a number of exchanges, mainly online, with people that are also working on this topic, or whose job or professional or personal vocation requires them to be updated to the state of play, the state of the art about good policies towards digitalization and rural development, particularly in agriculture, across Europe. And also another thing, and the officials who will be in the audience will confirm, we cannot look at projects as in isolation. It's important to do collaboration and a dialogue between the projects, their outputs, and the organizations that participate with that. And that's why we are very glad to have a representative, not just from CODECS, but also from Beatles and other projects like the ones that Gerald Ruard is responsible for. Why we're doing that today? Well, partly because we planned that originally, but also much more specifically because now is the time to share our knowledge and information about the future of sustainable digitalization in agriculture. Only yesterday, there was a hearing here in Brussels, ADL is based in Brussels, about the future of common agricultural policy. In a few days, we expect, or in a few weeks, expect DG Agri to provide a further outline about their emerging ideas towards post-2027 agriculture, in addition to the reports that have been published at the end of last year. And then in little over a year, we might actually see already the new proposals being published at the earliest, in any case. But, you know, that will be, at the same time, we have the CAP strategy plans, which are really only 1 year old since they start being implemented. And as both practitioners, public administrations, the Commission needs evidence-based input from projects. This meeting is precisely to facilitate that sort of exchange, to people get new ideas. And of course, as many of these material we are discussing today are public or will be public, you know, this is just to entice you to actually get to know more about what these projects, evidence and solutions are finding. One key element of today, talking about solutions, is the CODECS digital platform that will be presented later on in this morning session, which is a tool to gather the existing instruments about digital ecosystems and digitalization in farming, and make them in a user-friendly way to package them in a user-friendly way, so actually users, beneficiaries can actually make use of these tools in a way that actually can be helpful. Of course, I'm mumbling the presentation. I'm sure that the colleague from Athens University will be able to provide a much more much more specific description later on. But that's just to provide you an outline of what we're going to have today. And that is, in terms of general introduction, we want to take more time and to be on time. So we're going to start, obviously, with a presentation on CODECS and what CODECS is about and what is the state of play of the question that gathers us today. And for that, there's no other better choice to have the coordinator of the project, Professor Gianluca Brunori, full professor from University of Pisa on food policy, as being editor-in-chief of the Journal of Agricultural and Food Economics, 30 years working on agricultural innovation, the social elements of agriculture and rural development. He has coordinated CODECS, recently the CIRE, as part of Futural, Moving, Transform, Salsa, Sufisa, Diversi-Food, AgriSpeed, Truc, and Glamour, and among many other things over the extensive career. I also understand that he is the coordinator of a bachelor course on viticulture of enology, which I'm sure will lead to very interesting workshops in the harvest season. But today we're actually discussing the state of the question of digitalization of agriculture as insofar CODECS has been working on that so far for a year. So without further ado, Professor Brunori, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Serafin, and thank to all participants for coming to this webinar. I will try to be brief, but at the same time, trying to be effective on the explanation of what CODECS is about. The title is Understanding CODECS and the Idea of Sustainable Digitalization. We are very, let's say, keen on trying to developing this concept of sustainable digitalization because we have the feeling that sometimes digitalization is considered the end and not the mean, whereas for us, digitalization is really a mean to an end. So we start from some assumptions. The first one is that digitalization is a socio-technical transformation. And this means that anytime we consider technical innovation, we have to consider social repercussion of it, the changes that it creates in the social interaction. And this is a very important methodological starting point because we have to always to link together technology and social change. The second assumption is that digitalization doesn't just generate private costs and benefits. So we are not just looking at the costs and benefits at farm level, but we are considering costs and benefits at broader level, at the community level, at the environmental level, etc. The third aspect is related to the fact that digital adoption and if effectiveness is influenced by contextual factors. So we need, especially if we consider policy aspects, to see what are the influence of the context on the pace of the digital transformation, but also on the costs and benefits. So the overarching goal of CODECS is to improve the collective capacity to understand, assess, and foresee the full range of benefits and costs of farm digitalization, and to build digital ecosystems that maximize the net benefits of digitalization. Why we talk about collective capacity? We are, let's say, very, very convinced that we can move towards a sustainable digitalization if we involve a broad range of stakeholders. And this knowledge accelerator is one of examples of considering the stakeholders and all this type of researchers, innovators, etc., as part of our community. At the same time, we want to do something, not just to know something, but we want to do something for sustainability. So we want to contribute to build the digital ecosystem. For this reason, our project is structured around a number of living labs, 20 living labs that will operate to introduce digital technologies and assess their impact. But the first question we have to ask is cost and benefits of what? Because we can consider, first of all, that digitalization operates through handsets, sensors, applications, actuators, Internet of Things systems. And sometimes we don't have to evaluate just one of these elements, but we have to consider the assemblages of different components. And these components are assembled into goods. For example, I buy a machine with sensors that is connected to a software, or we can buy a service. So I pay something, a service that is given from an assemblage of machines, tools, and peoples. So we have to, first of all, understand very well what is the object of analysis to identify its costs and benefits. And then we start from the assumption that each digital solution connects and disconnects components of the physical, the social, and of the digital world. So the understanding of the process of digitalization is an understanding of a process of connection and disconnection. And this the connection and disconnection, each of them generates costs and benefits. We have to consider then physical components, so infrastructure, natural resources, social components, so the owners, the direct, indirect users, the intermediaries, the support providers, etc. And then we have to consider specifically digital components, so other software, hardware, databases. And sometimes we know that if we try to link together two different softwares, for example, let's say, flowing some data, it is not so straightforward because there are compatibility issues. So our key question is, how do costs and benefits change in relation to different configuration of these assemblages? And for example, we can address this issue in terms of the value chain. We know that in an organization, there is a logistic operation, outbound logistic, marketing, sales, and services. And what can happen at one level of these components, for example, in the inbound logistics, have effects on all the other components of the farm or the business. So we have to adopt a systemic approach, trying to understand where the cost and benefits is originated and how it transmits along the value chain. But this can be applied also to inter-business operations. So we have a farmer, we have a processor, we have a distributor, we have the retailers. So if we introduce a technology at farm level, what will happen at, for example, at the retailer level? Who will get the costs and who will get the benefits? So this is the type of approach we are starting to use. And we are conceptualizing this project around four key concepts. The first is co-benefits, the second is capability, the third is resources or digital resources, and the fourth is digital ecosystem that you have already let's say listened from my initial parts of the presentation. So this four concept, co-benefits. Co-benefit, as I said before, we want to measure not only benefits and costs at farm level, but we have to consider cost and benefit at the community level, at territorial level, at national level, etc. Of course, having different scales of operation. And so our key question is, how the costs and benefits are distributed among social groups. So what does go to the farmer, what does go to other actors, etc. The second aspect is related to resources, and specifically digital resources. So our question is, what kind of resources are needed for a sustainable digitalization? And we know that always we need human resources, digital resources, technological resources, but also social resources. And we have to explore the mix of these resources in the, let's say, pursuit of a digital digitalization. Then the third concept is capabilities. Capability is the power to transform resources into specific outcomes. So it is a subjective, let's say, property, and this capability should be able to use in a meaningful way the resources available in the community. So the question would be, what kind of capabilities are needed to produce co-benefits? So how resources can be turned into co-benefits. And last but not least, we will focus a lot on the concept of digital ecosystems. The digital ecosystem represent, in our view, the context of operations at farm level. For example, if I don't have connectivity infrastructure, the ecosystem is not conducive for my goals. But there are a lot of other components of the digital ecosystems. So other actors, my customers, my suppliers, my advisors. There are a lot of aspects of the digital ecosystem that affect the quality of and the direction of the digitalization. So our question will be, how do digital ecosystems generate resources and capabilities and affect the distribution of costs and benefits? So this is what I wanted to tell you as for a beginning. I will be welcoming your question if there is time, but I'm sure that you will see, for example, in the next presentation also, what are the resources we are going to introduce in our ecosystems to be able to build a conducive and, let's say, effective ecosystem for a sustainable digitalization. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gianluca. Thank you, Professor Brunori. Indeed, we will have a bit of a space later when we have the next presentation as to cover the whole of CODECS. And that's why, I mean, one of the key of today is precisely the contribution of Anna Salini Petropoulou, from researcher from the prestigious Agricultural University of Athens, but recently also working previously in the equally prestigious Wageningen University of Research, which is well known as well in this field. Her expertise focus on enhancing the understanding and efficiency of agricultural management through development of digital solutions. It's quite interesting, the work she's doing on integration of sensor and IE in agricultural matters. And as part of the smart farming group of the Athens University of Agriculture, she's precisely involved on the development of digital platforms. And this is perhaps best exemplified, and that's why we are grateful she could join us today, the work she's doing on the CODECS digital platform, which in a way explains in detail, exemplifies what Professor Brunori has already said in general terms. So Anna, thank you for having you today with us, and the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll be sharing, and let me know that everything is okay. So, as Professor Gianluca mentioned earlier, digitalization is a means to an end, and among the resources that we are working in CODECS, on digital resources is the digital platform of CODECS. So today I would like to give you a short overview of this digital platform on behalf of our organization and of course the collaborative work with the rest of the consortium of the CODECS project. So to start with, the CODECS platform aims to support the delivery of the research outputs of CODECS with the overarching goal on enhancing the awareness and driving the adoption of the technologies by its stakeholders. So by providing a unified interface of this platform, we are aiming to empower the stakeholders to access conveniently digital technologies, resources, and oversee what are the potential of using these resources. The stakeholders that we can distinguish for the digital platform, of course, are researchers, they are policymakers, advisors, farmers, and foresters. As I said in the beginning, the activities are led by the Agricultural University of Athens, but it's a collaborative work also with other partners of the CODECS consortium, as you see, CZU, UNIP, CNR, INRE, ELGO, Demeter, and BIOS. So the CODECS platform is a dynamic hub of services. Boasts an umbrella infrastructure, and it's an interface, an integrated framework that offers services and tools within a centralized control panel. And what it's meant is that it is offering access to a meta-inventory of digital technologies, that it's tailored to the user needs. It's offering data storage and access capabilities through a dataset inventory that will host the CODECS research outputs, and also a multi-criteria assessment toolkit for toolkits that examine technologies from an environmental, technical, and ecological point of view. And looking more at the end of at the complete solution of the platform, it will also provide virtual demonstration of the assessment of these technologies through a digital demonstration toolkit. For the development of the platform, we are following an agile methodology, which what is meant is that the platform follows an iterative approach for its creation. So it's dynamic and it follows an adaptive cycle in order to address the complexity of and the uncertainties that are related to these digital toolkits. So we are breaking the design phase into chunks of requirements and of features. We started by scoping what is the objective of the platform, tailored always to the individual needs of the stakeholders. We identify the individual needs through surveys and workshops. Then we proceed with the design phase, so the translation of these needs into actual functional and non-functional requirements. In the development, so the actual technical part on creating the platform, launching different versions of the platform in each iterative cycle by starting with a prototype version and MVP and looking towards the final solution. Of course, we are evaluating the features that are present in the platform based on the feedback that we are collecting from the users. We are prioritizing the changes and looking at the final solution again. We are making sure that the solutions are having a long-term operation. So the findings that we have achieved so far are demonstrated and are available on how we started by drafting the requirements for the platform and how the platform looks like and how you can actually use it. The platform was launched last September, and today I would like to give you a short description of what it actually hosts so far and what is coming next this and the coming years. So we start with the inventory of datasets. CODECS will develop its own datasets that will be available through the interface that we are creating. So this the platform is an inventory where the users of the partners of CODECS are able to store the data that are generated, and the data will of course be open accessible to the public through the link that you can find also with this QR code, and in the previous slide you can browse in the on the platform, and you can find this accessible through the header menu and also while browsing on the home page. The data sets will become available on the short term once the complete analysis of the CODECS activities will be concluded. And then you will also find available on the same interface the meta inventory of digital technologies. So we want to show what are the available technology out there on certain domains. And this meta inventory is offering a centralized access that it's tailored to what each user would like to see, and gets an overview of these technologies for the various domains. It's built based on existing repositories, so earlier projects of Fairshare, Smartakis, and Desira. And this year it's expanded by integrating the platform with more repositories. With respect to the technologies that can be found available on this meta inventory repository, they are organized in the so-called application scenarios, which are actually field of applications of digital technologies in a given context. And here you can see the categories as organized for the CODECS project. And to give you an example on how this can be useful for any user, what it can be done is that by browsing this meta inventory, for instance, you want to find as a user information on irrigation for permanent crops, what can be done is you have a question like how to increase the value of my farm, the product that I'm creating by using technologies on smart irrigation. What about the costs and how I can save water? Well, by searching with an array of keywords that each user can select, the main technologies of interest will appear. You, as a user, can browse in the results, see the available technologies, and of course use this information to the benefit of your challenge that you are actually are in phase. In 2024, the platform will be enriched with the assessment toolkits. This will be a kit of available tools that will examine technologies from a technological, an economic, and environmental point of view, and a multi-criteria assessment tool. For the development of these tools, the CODECS research outputs will be used, as well as technologies that are found in the meta inventory. The tools will follow for the development also in agile methodology, which means that the requirements of these tools will be collected and analyzed in collaboration with the end users represented by the living labs of CODECS. The development of the toolkit will follow. There will be demonstration of the tool to the users of the CODECS Living Labs, and of course feedback will be collected for any adjustments and enhancements that will be needed. And finally, there will be the delivery of the toolkit or in the CODECS platform. So once the tool will mature and reach its final form, it will be integrated and digitalized in the digital platform interface. That's why we say that the CODECS platform is a centralized panel offering dataset access, meta inventory, technology access, and also assessment toolkit access of these technologies. So at the very end of the platform, or once we move ahead in the years of the project, all these results will be integrated and also will be available through interactive storybooks, which means there will be audiovisual content and demonstration from activities of the Living Labs for everyone to look at the progress and activities made. So that's why we would like to encourage you to enroll in this digital platform. Enrolling in the platform is very easy task. It requires an email, a password, and once this is created, you are able to edit your profile and also make adjustments tailored to your interests. So create favorites of data sets or favorites of technologies of your interest. The platform on the short term will be enriched with data sets and technologies with more repositories, as I said earlier. So please stay tuned, and we look forward to enriching the interface with the outputs of the project. That is from my side. I would like to thank you very much for your attention, and I'm very happy to receive your questions.
Thank you, Anna. I think you have used a lot of concepts. Let me allow another extra one, which is a lot of the platform can be summarized, in my view, as one-stop shop. Instead of having many tools and and different catalogs of solutions spread around, it's trying to actually to help people to have them in a consistent, user-friendly way. If I got it, but that's my understanding only. So maybe we can have a space now for debate and discussion. Of course, we have heard Professor Brunori general comments on the outcomes or aims of the project, and then specifically on the platform. So if any of you would like to make a question, please raise a hand. If yes, I think we already got a colleague, Christoph. So the floor is yours. If you could introduce yourself while you made your question.
Yes, thank you very much. My name is Christoph. I'm from Fraunhofer in Germany, and we were part of the DESIRA project. So my question would be, what do you understand by a digital platform? Because if I would talk with my colleagues here, let's say so, and ask them to tell about a digital platform, they have something different in mind. So my question is, in particular to Professor Gianluca Brunori, do you have like a definition of what you understand by a digital platform, like in a PDF or so, that I could share with my colleagues? That would be great.
Thank you very much, Christoph. And by the way, nice to see you again. Actually, we are working at the definition of platform, and there are platforms for different things. But what we are aiming at developing is an idea of a platform as a meeting point for supply and demand of specific services. So we are not considering a platform only something where information is stored and you can retrieve it, but something that can allow actors of an ecosystem to interact together, to share resources, to activate collaborations, etc. But of course, the process of building this platform is something that we really need to get in depth, because especially we see in rural areas, this process is at the very beginning. So we start with a specific technology, but this technology needs to be connected to a software. This software could be in the cloud, it could be downloaded from a website, but at the same time, other operators could have the access to the same data, so they could provide the new services. But in this case, we need to create a kind of governance of this access to this platform. So I think that in order to define a platform, we still have to consider the goal of it, the purpose of it, and then starting to identify the actors, the rules, and the, let's say, the resources that can be shared, etc. I hope I have not generated too much confusion, but tried to contribute it to a definition.
Thank you. I mean, clearly, what you probably summarizing, would you say is like a platform is a socio-technological interface, and therefore it's a technological or a place where you can actually store things and share things, but also requires a lot of governance. So it's a social thing after all, and that's why it's a bit difficult or value laden to define. I wonder if anybody else would like to make at least a second question, because then oh yes, Claire. Claire Sullivan, maybe?
Yeah. Hopefully you can hear me. Yes, my name is Claire Sullivan. I recently started at the Agricultural University of Athens, my PhD on an Entrust project to do with data sharing with farmers. And I was just curious about the digital platform. When you talk about hosting databases or having databases on there, can you tell a little bit more about whose databases those would be? Is that like from researchers, from farmers, from companies, all of the above? I was curious about the database side of things.
Anna, maybe?
Sorry, probably that's Anna. A question different, Anna.
The database of the CODECS platform will host data research outputs of CODECS, so results that are being collected so far on the living labs, workshops, and surveys that have been carried out with them. So the data will, of course, be processed, and all the analysis of the digital ecosystem will be presented in this database. So there will be no integration with other databases rather than only data of CODECS. Please let me know if this answers the question or if the question is on another direction.
No, that answered it. Thank you. That explains it. So the living labs are ongoing, or they haven't started yet. I didn't quite understand. Or there will be information coming from them, basically.
Yes, so the activities with the living labs have been carried out, but of course, always time is needed for processing all this information into actual information that can be demonstrated to anyone. So this is in the making and will be delivered as soon as possible on the database of CODECS.
Okay, thank you.
Maybe, unless I see a further question, which I'm not seeing, maybe a supplementary question for Anna, which just came out of the discussion. I mean, you have in the interaction with the living labs, how do they react to the user friendliness of the platform as it's been developed? I mean, because a lot of times you have like good ideas, people set up solutions, and then when it comes to the clash with the reality with the ground, people think actually that, seen from the beneficiary point of view, it doesn't make sense. So you have encountered any of that, and what you have done to try to overcome that? I appreciate we're still at the beginning, but any feedback that will be interesting for others engaged in this issue. Thank you.
Yeah. Usually what we are doing is before starting any building of the requirements, we are having surveys, having targeted questions in order to get as much as more information on how they would like to use the tool or how it should look like even. So after we collect this information, we create the so-called mock-ups. So how the interface would look like. We open this up to partners that ideally should also represent some stakeholders, not necessarily the end living labs. But once the solution is more mature, then also with some more interactive workshop with living labs, we would like to carry out tasks like, please find this in the environment and give us your thoughts. How easy was that to access, or whether you would like to have it in a different way. So now that the tool becomes more and more mature, there will be this kind of workshops and interactions to collect this kind of feedback. And if there are comments that, for example, this is not something that I would like to use in order to access this service, then we make the necessary adjustments. That's why we are following this iterative approach. Of course, the needs and the requirements from the users may change. So in every iteration, we are trying to address all these different wishes of the stakeholders.
Right. I think we're just gonna move to the next section. I think that's. I think we can still have space for somebody. Maybe Gerald would like to take the floor. I see.
Yes, sorry,
Yes.
Serafin.
Go
Just
ahead,
a
go ahead.
quick question, if I can.
Yes.
I thank you very much for the presentations. Very interesting. I have a question on the living labs and the use of the data and the digital tools. Are you and sorry if I missed that, just to be clear in my mind, is that focusing more on the level of each individual living lab? So are you developing data strategies or strategies for digital tools that are then used within a living lab? Or is that also particularly emphasizing and looking at digital tools that are used across the living labs? So for the living labs to cooperate like networks of living labs like we have now with the partnership on agroecology, and I think for the soil mission there are similar efforts. What is the level that you expect the digital tools to be used? Is it within the living lab? Is it across the living lab? Is it both? And how does that impact on strategies, roadmaps for data use and all that?
Yes, maybe I can answer. Actually, we with the concept of demonstration, we really aim at sharing the tools, or at least the insights related to the tools among living labs. So maybe I can give a little bit of words about how the architecture of CODECS is composed. We have 20 living labs with very different technologies. So from very advanced to very beginning, from, let's say, participation to e-commerce platforms, to, let's say, sensors and systems for irrigation. So the unifying concept is really to analyze the process and to address the issues of costs and benefits. But for example, we have some tools for assessment, tools for, let's say, analyzing multi-criteria costs and benefits that really we aim to share among different technologies. So in the end, we will have general purposes tools that can be shared among living labs, but also beyond the living labs. And really, we hope that to have the possibility to let's say, to share these tools and maybe to co-develop these tools with other living labs. This is really a hope we have.
Okay, great. Yeah, thanks.
Okay. I was very happy to give the floor to Gerald because he's one of the speakers of the next slot. So anytime he's using now, we'll detract that automatically from his slot. No, just joking. We are in good time. But it's actually quite a good introduction for the next slot of this morning session, which of course we're talking about so far about CODECS. But actually, the interest of this knowledge accelerator is not just showing how great the project is, how promising it is, but actually contrasting with the lessons and experiences from other projects. And I'm very glad that we can have that thanks to Gerald and Marilena, thanks to the Beatles project, but also UNISECO and other projects that Gerald has been involved, because that provides a wider perspective and also in a way critically assess whether what we are doing is right or there are actually things that we should look up in a different way. So I would like to start, if I may, with Marilena, Dr. Marilena Gemtu, senior researcher in the Agricultural University of Athens, good colleague of us as we work together as also in the Beatles project. Beatles, as she will explain, focus on behavioral change need in food systems to adopt climate-smart agriculture. In itself, as I'm sure she will say, climate-smart agriculture is a contextual definition, very common elsewhere, not less so in Europe. So, that's also a conceptual thing that we have been having to deal with. She has a degree in economics and a PhD in behavioral decision-making from the University of Bath. And as I mentioned, in addition to quite a few other roles, she's the coordinator of, in a way, our boss in the Vitos project. So without further ado, Marilena, please go ahead.
Hello, Serafin. Thank you for the introduction. It was really funny to hear the word boss. Okay, I will share my screen. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, so yes, I'm Marilena. Serafin said I'm the project manager actually of Beatles project. So the Beatles stands for Behavioral Change Towards Climate Smart Agriculture. So you heard the presentation about CODECS, which takes the technical aspects of sustainable agriculture. Beatles takes the social perspective of how we can change the behavior of the agri-food value chain stakeholders towards climate smart agriculture. It is a Horizon Europe project. It started back in July 2022. So now we have ongoing activities for the past 18 months, and it is a 4-year project. Here you can see our partners. We have 18 partners across 10 European countries spread out in different parts of Europe. We have partners like Wageningen, ADL, Serafin and Blanca are working there, University of Copenhagen and other very prestigious institutions, research organizations and other types of organizations, as you can see here. So the main goal of this project is to encourage long-term, large-scale transitions to sustainable, productive and climate-smart agriculture. As I said before, we do not only deal with farmers, but we want also to examine and understand how farmers are affected from food systems and other actors, and how all these interrelationships affect the transition to climate smart agriculture. And what are the steps in the project and the activities that are going to lead to these transitions, how we can understand what is going on and how we can make some suggestions on how we can achieve these transitions. First, we are going to identify decision-making factors that affect this transition, and we are going to deal with individual, systemic, and policy factors. The main methodology that we are going to use is behavior experiments. We are going to have lab and field experiments. We are going to study 5 different food systems. I have a slide later on to show you the different 5 case studies that we are using for this project. We have both crop and livestock case studies. We also assess environmental, social, and economic impact of the various climate smart agriculture practices that we are using and the behavioral interventions that we are going to use in the Beatles project. And then we are going, based on these results, we are going to design fair value propositions and a portfolio of business models. And we are going to formulate fair policy recommendations and tools in order to achieve this transition to climate smart agriculture. And of course, we have a range of dissemination and exploitation activities to increase the visibility of the project and to reach to more value chain stakeholders. Here you can see a map with the 5 case studies that I talked before. So we have Lithuania with wheat, Denmark with the pig sector, Spain with fruits and apples in specific, Germany with dairy sector, and the Netherlands, they will focus on onion and potato sector. So we have chosen different food systems which are representative of the European agricultural sector, and they account for 45% of agricultural land currently. We use a multi-actor approach, so we have various co-creation activities, but also we tried to design all the activities, the various activities like the behavior experiments, the business models, the policy recommendations, using all the stakeholders and the partners that we have in the project. And we also use these partners for their network that they are associated with farmers, advisors, industry stakeholders, policy advisors, researchers, and consumers and end users in general. So all these people are involved in the various Beatles activities like surveys, experiments, co-creation workshops, the validation of the business models, policy recommendations, and knowledge transfer activities. The expected outcomes in general and the overall, but we have several steps in between in order to achieve this, is 10 lab and field experiments, 10 business models to be identified and validated, 10 key actionable policy recommendations, and to reach 10,000 stakeholders through the communication channels. So here I will talk about a bit about the first year's activities. So in the first year, we needed to understand, we had a few research questions, and we needed to understand what is out there, which means what are the factors that affect the transition of farmers towards climate smart agriculture? What is the role that industry stakeholders play in this transition? What are the factors that affect consumers' purchasing behavior towards environmentally friendly products or organic products and in general sustainable products? What are the policies out there? And what are the climate smart agriculture practices? So we did 5 systematic reviews in order to find the overall framework and to understand these kind of factors. And then subsequently, we did a survey targeting 720 farmers in order to understand what are the main barriers and drivers that they face in the adoption of climate smart agriculture practices, and then a survey targeting more than 1,000 consumers. Again, we wanted to understand what are the factors that affect their purchasing behavior with respect to environmentally friendly products. We did a set of interviews with industry stakeholders. So we asked them what they do in their part of the value chain in order to help the transition to climate smart agriculture. And then we had the 5 co-creation workshops, one in each use case, where the case studies used their network and they brought together around 15 stakeholders, starting from farmers and ending with consumers. So they had like also industry stakeholders, advisors, policy advisors, and they talked about the various barriers and drivers that they face in the different parts of the value chain. Here you can see some of the key findings. So we found quite a few barriers, like for instance, in the individual factors, we know that farmers usually, the average profile is that they are older in age, they have low income and low training opportunities. There is lack of awareness or knowledge about these practices, climate smart practices and technologies. They often state that it's very difficult to adopt them because they require time, money, and workload, and they currently don't have this kind of resources to expend. Also, they mention things like high initial investment costs, and this is in contrast with long payback periods. And also, there is a lack of entrepreneurial mindset among farmers. Also, there are things related to technologies. They are not easy to understand, not easy to implement. Sometimes there is lack of trust from the farmer side. And now with the data sharing economy, we have data security issues. But what we found actually is that usually while we see farmers in isolation, we shouldn't see farmers in isolation, but we should take a food system perspective and understand the whole context in which farmers operate. So we found a few barriers and drivers in what we call systemic and policy factors. So like, for instance, a lot of farmers valued a lot the role of advisory services and how important advisors are in giving advice on how they can implement and integrate in their operations the new technologies and practices. Also, they are talking about market demand, so they are afraid about whether market will continue to ask for for their products, and if consumers are willing to pay more in order to get this kind of products. They also talked about social influence and the neighboring effect, so how other farmers can influence their behavior if they see other farmers, their neighbors, doing similar activities like adopting climate smart farming technologies. They also want to try these new practices. Otherwise, if this social influence is not in their environment, it is difficult for them to be convinced to adopt these practices. Another aspect that we are going to focus a lot in the project is the fair trade and fair distribution of economic returns. As I said before, we will try to suggest fair business models and fair policies. So fairness is an aspect that we are going to focus a lot, and it's quite new. Not a lot of projects or research has focused in this. So we want to understand the different perceptions of fairness in the different parts of the value chain, and how we can align the different perceptions in order to have a better distribution of economic returns across the value chain. Policy factors. In general, we saw that farmers are happy with policies, but also that they have found a few barriers in specific policies. So sometimes they felt that financial incentives are not high enough to account for the high investment costs they have. They state unfair allocation of subsidies across different farmer groups or across different regions. So they have different needs across regions, countries, but policies usually use a one-size-fits-all approach. Bureaucracy and also lack of clear and long-term agricultural vision. This is what they stated as barriers. So these are some of the findings. As I said, in the first year, we tried to understand what is out there, and some challenges, because Serafin asked me to talk about the challenges that we faced in the first year of the project. Because it's a social project, we found difficulty in recruiting a high number of participants. So it was very difficult for the case studies, even if they are big organizations with huge networks and various stakeholders are linked to these organizations. It was very difficult for them to recruit farmers and other stakeholders in the research activities that we had. In the survey specifically, we found difficulty with farmers. It was very difficult to translate the research questions that we had and the questions of the survey into a language that they could understand. So they found the survey quite difficult to answer. Stakeholders, although they like the project, it's very difficult to see the benefits. So for instance, when you have a technical project where stakeholders come into a farm and they test technologies, they see the benefits. But in a social project like Beetles, maybe we will hear the experience from UNISECO later on. It was very difficult to see the benefits. And also we try, as I said, to use a bottom-up approach. So to involve stakeholders and case studies when we design the research in order to understand their problems and fit the research questions and how we do the research design to their own problems. That's all from my side. Thank you very much. I'm happy to hear any questions you have.
Thank you, Marilena. We'll have the space of questions after Gerald, but I would like to already thank you for in a way, certainly the last part quite illuminating. I mean, sometimes these meetings is about how beautiful my project is, but I think it's actually helpful to others, also others who are involved in similar projects or other projects that involve stakeholders, that involve living labs, understand the need to properly plan and engage and how consider different scenarios, because even with the best intentions, it takes a lot of time to actually engage the different partners, because people have their own lives, have different things, and having that understanding is important. So particularly thank you for that contribution. But maybe Gerald can have also other lessons on that particular point, or more generally about the object of digitalization in agriculture. Gerald Zwart from Tunin. It's a colleague that we have been engaging a number of activities in different roles over the years. He is well known, as you know, from Tuning Agricultural Center, Germany. We've been pretty much involved with him in Sherpa, and we're also exploring other opportunities. He's actually working in Scotland for quite a few years, and he's been focusing on transdisciplinary research for the transformation and farming and food system towards more sustainability. He, in that respect, as project coordinator, has been part of FP6, FP7, and, as I say, Horizon Europe programs. Today, perhaps I would like Gerald, apart from the wider perspective he can definitely provide after so many projects and so many years involved in this particular issue, a bit the lessons learned from UNISECO, which is a project that ended in 2021, so it's not so long ago. And we thought useful because UNISECO is a research project that aimed to develop innovative approach to understand the socio-economic policy drivers and barriers to implementation of agroecological practices in the EU farming systems. In a way, one of the things that we are trying to do in CODECS and in Beatles is try to build on some of these lessons and findings you have in UNISECO and trying to improve them, expand them, make them relevant to the topic as we are in the current policy cycle. So a reflection on that, Gerald, will be particularly helpful. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Serafin. A pleasure to be here. It's really interesting, and I'm very happy to have the opportunity here to talk a bit about our experiences in UNISECO. Yeah, thanks for the introduction. I will focus a bit more, and maybe I hope I didn't misunderstand the contribution that you were looking for. I will focus a bit more on data collection, on our experiences with data collection in UNISECO, in particular around the multi-actor platforms that we used as a kind of core mechanism in the project, and then talk a bit also about issues in relation to digital solutions, where those were identified in the various exchanges with the actors and how they relate to those topics. Because in UNISECO, of course, we did not focus on digitalization or digital solution, just that we keep that in mind maybe a little bit. So I will just very briefly run through a quick summary of the project, explain a bit our multi-actor platforms. Then the idea I had in my mind was just to give a couple of examples of data collection, just to make this a bit more concrete, and maybe also picking up a couple of challenges here, and then to look into a few key points, issues that we can derive for data collection, and also I think for the role of digital solutions in transitions to agroecology, basically. I think you already emphasized or explained a little bit the main objective of the UNISECO project. It was really about looking into transitions to agroecology and to co-construct with actors on the ground strategies and incentives for agroecology transitions, of course, with the overall objective behind it then to strengthen the sustainability of European farming systems. And in the project, we had a number of kind of key areas, key activities. So we had, for example, a kind of status quo assessment on the current sustainability performance of farming systems. We identified and analyzed barriers and drivers of agroecology transitions. I think with quite some similar issues arising that were also presented for the Beetle project. So really about the understanding and of why transitions to agroecology in some cases were successful, and others maybe have not been started or did not succeed. And then based off that, on that enhanced knowledge, then to co-develop, to co-create the strategies for transitions to agroecology. So really to look into solutions and to identify the roles and contributions of the different actors. And then we assess the sustainability implication of those strategies, also considering to some extent impacts in the context of future uncertainties when it comes to wider scenarios at EU level, for example. And UNISECO was in the countries implemented here that you see highlighted in the dark green areas across Europe, and we had case studies in those countries really to look at the local context and the systems level, and then with the multi-actor platforms that I will be talking about a bit more in a minute, both in the countries and the case studies, but with multi-actor platform at the European level, really focusing on capacity building and cooperation of actors. And then based on all that, we derive practice and policy recommendations for the different levels of the policy making. And well, those broadly relate to enhancing knowledge, the issues of the added value that is needed for agroecology transitions, effective policy design, and also the importance of changes in consumer preferences and diets. Now, that's just a quick run through basically of the project in a nutshell. Maybe just quickly give you a rough idea on the scope of the different case studies. So on the left, the kind of case study level of the project, and on the right, the kind of EU level scenarios that we looked at the European level. And basically the case studies covered different types of farming systems, from mixed farming systems to Mediterranean perennial systems, conventional organic dairy systems, and also intensive arable livestock systems, where it really was more about initiating transitions to what is needed in order to start a transition to more sustainable farming systems. And then the information from the case study level also feeding into the EU level scenarios, and of course vice versa, also the EU level scenarios informing the case study work. So how the wider context of farming systems will change in the future, and how that translates into transitions to agroecology from business as usual with different types of scenarios to local agroecological food systems. And the results of the project are published in a number of publications. There's one special issue in EuroChoice for those who are interested to read about that. Now, let me just talk about the multi-actor platform. So basically in the case studies and at European level, we set up multi-actor platforms, a kind of transdisciplinary approach, really to enhance our understanding of agroecology transitions with all the different steps that I outlined before, understanding the challenges in terms of sustainability of the systems, the barriers and drivers, and then to co-construct strategies and recommendations for those systems to really move towards transition to agroecology. And the multi-actor platforms basically brought together different actors from farmers, advisors, value chain actors, representatives from administration and authorities. So really a combination of actors from practice, policy, and also science. But what's important maybe to point out so that there is no misunderstanding, those multi-actor platforms were relatively small groups. So we talk about 10 to 20 members of the multi-actor platforms that's important to understand, I think, the way of engagement and the way of interactions that were done. And the idea was, what we did with the multi-actor platform is to really generate impact. So really trying to influence the practices and really to focus on the real problems and opportunities for the LAMP managers in those areas to well, as much as we could, to place it in the real world context. And the farm level assessments that we did were also done with real farms. So really it's about increasing the capacities of the actors with the aim to lead to operational changes in the farming practices, to contribute to developing new or strengthened networks of the actors, and also to inform the science society policy dialogue through the activities and engagements within the multi-actor platforms. So basically with the multi-actor platforms, we also then did the data collection and discussed the data collection and reviewed the data collection. And just to pick a couple of examples, one is the sustainability assessments of farming systems we did with decision support tools like the SMART tool from Feeble, for example. And I don't want to go through all the diagrams here. It's basically the key things to point out maybe in the context of insights on data collection and the challenges that the design of the data collection and the approaches and the activities were done together with the members of the multi-actor platforms to a different degree between the different multi-actor platforms in the different countries, but really about engaging and involving them in discussing the scope of the indicators and the approach to collecting the data, and also to involve actors in the actual data collection, so be it the farmers on the farm or advisors doing with us the data collection on the farms. And that of course required training, and it was, I mean, we I think heard before or talked about the challenges of resources and time needed, and that clearly I think also we experienced in UNISECO. It was time consuming, and it was it required quite a bit of resources for training and engaging the actors in the various activities, which is also why we kept the number of farms relatively small in each case study. I think there's somebody with the microphone open, sorry. So another example of data collection is more to qualitative data, where we had the analysis, social network analysis with the multi-actor platforms. So the analysis of governance networks through participatory mapping with different interviews and workshops, really to generate insights into roles, the influences and relationships of the actors in the networks, and really to understand actor networks during and in transitions to agroecology here. And in addition to the data collection, then of course another important point is also the data use. And I think also for CODECS, I think you referred in the presentation there to the use of storybooks. In UNISECO, we did something similar with the use of story maps, so a little bit the storification of results, and giving the case study results, well, in a way also faces of real actors and their perspectives and experiences. And the story maps would basically integrate also some of the quantitative results and present the results and the insights from the perspectives of the different actors. And here's just an example from Romania. We have another example here on the slides from Sweden. But we have those story maps for each of the 15 case studies that we did across Europe. And it's really emphasizing the kind of experience from the different actors' perspective. For example, in Sweden with the diversification of farming systems, that was a key area here. So it's a bit about the question on how we use the data, then also in terms of visualization and demonstration, in addition to demonstration events, workshops, on-farm events, etc. Just quickly, a couple of points on the the points derived from the activities with the multi-actor platforms in UNISECO when it comes to supporting actions on the ground. The multi-actor platforms and all the engagements really provided insights on the barriers to transition to sustainable farming, and here also to overcoming those barriers. Issues highlighted were the strengthened collaborative actions and the collective institutions that are needed for agroecology transition to increase the negotiating power within the value chain. But the platforms also provided kind of learning communities where the actors would come together to really implement practical solutions, for example, improved access to machinery, joint processing and storage. That was some of the issues and benefits from the multi-actor platform, for example, also in the case of Romania that were highlighted. But it also relates to digital solutions and technologies that were identified in the analysis of the strategies for transitions to agroecology, and here in particular, with roles in facilitating the kind of cooperation between farms and along the value chains that were highlighted. And I think that also related back to the joint use of infrastructure. So just to summarize to close, because I think I'm probably already out of time, just a few key issues on data collection and maybe on the role of digital solutions as well. Of course, data principles, data strategy, and roadmaps are critically important with issues such as openness, transparency, but also the ethical data collection and use and related timetables and resource allocation. And maybe just also to stress here a point that I think we picked up already in the discussion before in terms of plans for mobilizing data sets. So it's really important to think beyond archiving data, but really fostering the exchange of data and joint use of data through actors. And I think that's something that will be also one of the key elements or the key activities in the partnership on agroecology, where the idea is really to also have virtual environments that foster that joint use of data and exchanging data for improved use of data. But of course, then that also needs protocols to support data harmonization, as the data are quite different across the countries, which is important here. And I think we also picked up in the comments already, if I remember correctly, acknowledgement of ownership of data, in particular when it comes to ownership of new knowledge that needs to be defined together with the actors, and there needs to be acknowledgement that, of course, the actors and the multi-actor platforms, they bring in the data, for example, the farmers, and it is their data to begin with. When it comes to roles of digital solutions, I think there are a few examples that easily come to mind from the different parts in UNISECO. So one aspect is about enhancing the knowledge and the demonstration of benefits of agroecological farming. So the use of digital tools and digital solutions to really to advance the knowledge on benefits. That was one of the main issues, but also then in terms of connecting the actors along the value chain with various different digital value chain solutions. I think we picked up already the point on logistics, addressing problems in logistics along the value chain and really connecting producer and consumers through digital solutions. That was a point that came up in a number of case studies. And a point that relates to digital data storage and cooperation on infrastructure use, what I already highlighted. So just to close, with contribution of maps to data collection, I think from our experience, the kind of multi-actor platforms contribute to a kind of understanding of common objectives and also appreciation of the differences. And that, of course, relates to transitions to agroecology, but it also relates to objectives in relation to data collection and data use. And also it relates to the kind of collective capacity of the actors in the multi-actor platforms, and then also the collective capacity of those actors to cooperate in the future when it comes to farm digitalization. The contribution of the maps relate to the local understanding of the farming systems, or the understanding of the local farming systems and the different context, and also the facilitation and fostering joint demonstration events that are organized with peer-to-peer learning, be it on-site, in-field workshops, and also used digital solutions, digital tools for virtual engagements that play an important role here. So basically, really bringing together the actors from practice, science, and policy, and building the trust that we also picked up in the past. That's really the backbone of all the cooperation and collective actions, and also then building the trust together for connecting components of social and digital worlds that are potential important contribution of the maps. And that also relates back to the point that I mentioned earlier. The maps are relatively small, where it's easier to have that trust building relationships than in larger groups. And I think that was all that I wanted to quickly run through. So thanks a lot for your attention. Further information is online on the website, Zenodo, etc. And thanks also to all the partners, of course, in the project that you see here. And I look forward to questions and discussions. So thanks a lot.
Thank you, Gerald.
I don't see anybody at the moment, so I will stop sharing.
No worries. Yes. Thank you. I mean, again, it's been very helpful, not just for CODECS, but also for many other people, researchers and policymakers that are around the room, to understand the challenges of organizing data collection, how to do the protocols, how to engage with the local case. And I think a quick question you mentioned, sometimes it's better to have a smaller scale use cases that you can actually work with, particularly you have to train and invest time and resources in that, than being too ambitious. And then, it's basically difficult to manage, because basically there's a basic disconnect. So I think I think we are getting here pretty honest accounts of how the challenge of doing all of this, and that's particularly helpful for this project, but also other people is engaged here. We have some few minutes to questions. I'm not sure if let me see if I can see it's additional. If yes. I think it's a call. Mr. Photo Papa raised the hand, so please welcome to make your question. Could you explain who you are and where you come from?
Yes, thank you so much. I'm a PhD student at Sant'Anna School of Advanced Studies in Pisa, in Italy. I'm from Greece, and I just wanted to ask a question concerning the Beatles project. If I can ask about the business models that were mentioned, if you can elaborate a bit on that, what do you mean by business models? And maybe a little bit about fairness, since you said it's one of the differences with other projects. If you could briefly explain the importance of fairness and how you will use it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Marilena.
Thank you, Fotini, I assume.
Yes.
Okay, so first of all, you asked me about the business models. The backbone of the project, as I said before, is to understand barriers and drivers, and based on this, to propose business models and policy recommendations. So currently, we have started the work for business models. We try to understand at this point what are the changes that farmers have made from the time that they switched from the conventional farming practices to smart farming practices, or in general CSA practices, and what they consider fair value propositions. So what this means is if they feel that they get the fair prices for the products. So, for instance, we have a long discussion, especially lately, that farmers are complaining that the returns are really small compared to the final prices of the products. So we need to understand the different perceptions in the value chain of what they consider fair. In the trade relationships, in the prices that they get, in the information asymmetries that there are between in the different parts of the value chain, etc. So this is how we are going to approach fairness, and how we are going to finally develop fair business models based on these results. This work is going to end at the end of the project and started back in July, so the previous July. I don't know if this answers your question, or if you have more questions on this, please ask.
Yes, thank you so much. I was just wondering if the business models concerned, the technology providers, or it was more about the farmers. So thank you so much for your answer. Thank you.
Yes, it is basically for the farmers. Yeah.
I think we still have time to squeeze, because I want to be as much as possible with time, because people usually has other commitments, I am aware. So I think we have Juan in the audience. Could you actually introduce yourself, where you come from, and what your question is? Thank you.
Yes, good morning. Thank you for the presentation, although I missed the first almost half an hour, but when I will see that later on your, I understand that they will be available on your site.
Yes.
I work at the European Commission on connectivity in DG Agri, essentially connectivity in rural and remote areas. My question is, I believe, for Marilena. She presented 5 farm typologies, say, throughout Europe. I believe was pork in Denmark, fruit in Spain, cereals in one of the Baltics, I don't remember which one, and so on. And those selected typology farms are supposed to encapsulate the sector, the average sector of the European Union. But I would like to know, of course, there are some differences in the cereal sectors in some, throughout the EU, but there are also big differences. My question is, how did you do to choose a farm that represent to the best in the best possible way what the situation is throughout the EU? Thanks.
So Juan, if I understood well your question is if these 5 case studies represent the EU sector. This is the question. Can you, or if not, can you please ask it in a different way?
Let's take one example, cereals in the Baltic or pork in Denmark. How do you do to choose a type of pork farm in Denmark that can represent the pork industry throughout the EU? I mean, what were the criteria to select it, to say this is the farm chosen and this is the type of farm in terms of size, in terms of labor, in terms of whatever, and this, by focusing on it, we can extrapolate essentially to what will happen to all the pork farms in the EU. How do you do to select a good representative pork farm in Denmark to represent the whole pork industry throughout the EU? That's the question.
Mm-hmm. Yes, this is a little bit difficult to answer. So we try to, at the proposal phase, we try to find sectors that are representative in the countries that we chose. And also we chose a specific number of case studies. So if you see, for instance, UNICECO adopted a different type of approach. So our approach was to focus on specific case studies and try to replicate or see the differences. So we do the same research on the different case studies, and not one type of research in one case study or the other. So we try to replicate results because this is what we asked for. So we try to find representative farming systems and sectors in each country, and then based on the network and the network of each organization that we chose in every country to find different farms. So we take into account differences in sizes and this kind of stuff, but within the country. So yes, your comment is true that maybe it is not representative in, so the pig sector in Denmark is not representative for the pig sector in another European country, but these are the restraints of research project and some choices that you make in order to be able to do the research that you have been funded for.
Thank you.
I think it's a very polite way of saying, with the amount of money you gave us, we can get X number of representative cases from as many high quality cases and value chains as possible in countries. But of course, there's a balance to make between the resources and the representativeness. Of course, well, a project like 3 times as bigger will be much more detailed. But I think that's a balance that when you do project design, you have to take and assess those caveats when doing the explanation of the project. So that's
also I think Serafin is the approach that we chose. So for instance, UNICECO, if Gerald also wants to jump in and reply the same question, they used another type of approach with different case studies and specific, I assume, research designs for each case study. So for us, it's a small number of case studies, and we do the research and we compare across all case studies.
Exactly, and the value change angle is quite distinctive compared to, for instance, the approach of UNICECO is much more far-centered, for instance.
Yeah, I agree. In UNICECO, the emphasis with the case studies was on the local solutions. So the idea was not that the case studies would be representative. So yeah, I think that's a fair point.
Yeah. There's different approaches, and of course, I mean, the intervention logic of both projects is different. But in a way, I mean, that's why we have a number of projects on adoption sustainability or smart techniques to be able to cover the different angles and different approaches. And that's why, again, having these sessions today, like today, is helpful to understand how this has been done in different projects, what are the lessons learned, but also the difficulties. And I think we dwell a lot on the difficulties, which will be helpful for these projects that we have at the moment, but also other projects. I know many people around this are preparing new research proposals at the moment. So, I think we got like a quite rich level of lessons learned here. And I think because I want to be respectful with the time and everybody's time, I think we have had a lot of, I thank Gerald and Marilena. I thank the other speakers. But I think we're just going to conclude with, after me talking so long, my colleague Merve, who is the project manager of this part of CODECS, who will provide a bit of a sum up and next steps as to conclude the meeting. So thank you. Merve.
Thank you, Serafin, and thank you all for attending today. So as we're running out of time, I will try to go as quickly as possible. So this was the first webinar of the Knowledge Accelerator, which is a network of that we're developing to enhance networking and knowledge exchange within the industry. So within the Knowledge Accelerator, we're going to have a community which will be available on a LinkedIn as a LinkedIn group that you can all join. And then also a few activities for the upcoming years, where we will, such as these webinars, and also some science and policy meetings where we can exchange on different topics related to the digitalization of agriculture and rural areas. So if you want to join the LinkedIn group, I invite you all to scan the QR code here and to submit your application. And it will be launched in the coming week. So you'll all be able to talk within each other and to discuss the activities that you're doing and key information that is relevant for the network. So just to keep in mind, so there's the first science and policy meeting will take place soon. It will focus on sustainable digitalization in agriculture and rural areas. At the moment, we're finalizing the dates, so you will be made aware when you can register. So just that you have that in mind. It will be coming really soon.